The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Stefan Kinsella from the Open Crypto Alliance,
Hello.
Ben Ark from BTC IoT,
Hello.
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Hello, hello, hello.
Josh Shigala from Voltoro,
Bonjour, mate.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1, Bitcoin price decline deepens, heads for the worst week since February. Technical charts suggested a weakening trend, with altcoins rallying and now sliding as the Bitcoin price slides towards $50,000. Bitcoin is down 9.8% since Sunday, the biggest drop on the weekly price charts since late February. Stefan Kinsella, the price of Bitcoin is in near freefall. What will we do? Is the bull run over?
It's a good time to buy. I was glad to see that it's on sale.
Bitcoin on sale, Ben Ark.
Yeah, it's people have been selling off for quite a while, so I was surprised that the price didn't seem to. That's what made me very bullish, because I knew a lot of people who were selling Bitcoin to buy stuff like houses and big cars and invest in other things and buy businesses and things, and the price didn't seem to be dented by it. So it showed how much sort of enthusiasm and new money there was coming into Bitcoin. Like, it wasn't just because there has been periods in the past where everyone's just been hodling. There's been no Bitcoins on the markets, the price has gone up, whereas that didn't seem to be the case this time round. There's been this a couple of big events with taxes. So now I think in the US you have to pay double, or you will have to pay double capital gains. So there's probably a whole bunch of people cashing out while the price is high, because they figure, well, if I'm going to have to pay double tax on it, then I might as well cash out now. But with all this crazy upward price momentum, every time we have these crazy upward price, even these bull runs, and even if they're not sustainable and the price drops fairly significantly, it's the hodler bedrock. Like, it sucks people in, and a percentage of those people aren't going to let go of that Bitcoin. They're going to hold on to it, and they're going to hold on to it, and they're going to hold on to it, and that just limits the supply more. So I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. It's just that, again, like, that top wedge of traders and opportunists and people who are probably better at managing their money than some other people who are selling out now. But the hodler bedrock continues to build, which gives us a much stronger base for the price to go even higher. So I'm still looking at the $230,000 price target, and this is, I'm sure, will be back up in a week or so.
Dan Eve, 100 trillion USD, the stock to flow model agrees with Ben. Are we still going up?
Well, I like to think that the prophecies will remain intact, but there's always a small piece of me that's a bit chicken licking, like, oh my God, the sky's falling. The real indicator is that my mum hasn't phoned me to say, is Bitcoin dead yet? So she's not capitulated yet. So I think we still have time. We're still in the bull run. We're still in the channel. And let's face it as well. It's like, what, 50, even just touching 51K now. It was like 12K at Christmas, or, well, sorry, at Christmas, beginning of December. So it's had one hell of a run. It is going, below the moving day, 50-day moving average, which people kind of make their trading moves on. But I think, as Ben said, the double cap gains could be part of the sell-off. Also, Martin was saying in the group earlier that there's $1 billion plus in options expiring today. And there was a power cut in China, so that could also probably have these small factors have a bit, and people just taking profit because Bitcoin's gone up so much. It's like, they're clever people. They'll sell a little bit. Well, no, they're not clever though. They should hodl.
Josh, penny, the sky is falling. It's all over.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, I would just not care. I was like, nah, whatever. I'm just one of these people. But I'm lucky enough to get in early, very early, so it's all right. But I had to I had to sell some to buy a large purchase in my life, namely a house, somewhere to live. and I decided to buy it. And you start to feel that stress of like, oh, it's starting to fall, and I thought, you know what, I gotta sell it now, because who knows? Like there was a lot of volume that sort of held up at this level, but then it dropped below at around about 48 in terms of dollars, and then euro, conversion. I thought, oh, look, this is I've got to just go now, and you guys can all thank me, but as soon as I sold, the market turned around and went right back up again. So no, you're all welcome.
That's always the way. Moving on to the exit question. Stefan Kinsella, the price of Bitcoin this time next week, higher or lower?
Higher.
Dan Eve.
I'm going to break my losing streak and say, although it did nearly touch 65, and I'm going to say higher.
Ben Ark.
I'm going to say lower for next week, but then back up the week after. But yeah, lower. Josh
Segala.
Yeah, I mean, I have been really looking at these charts, obviously for obvious reasons, and I'm not just saying this because I sold some, but I do believe it's going to go lower. I think there's not very much resistance here at all. When it went up to this level, it just cruised all the way up to this level pretty easily. It didn't stop for a while and pause and give some nice new areas of support or even resistance. And so if it did drop below this point, and I just was like, yeah, this is a risky area. When I say that, I'm just talking short term here. I'm just talking short term. Long term, well, in the next few months, there is no problem. We're heading into the double. We're heading into the hundreds. For sure.
And now the seer of seers, prognosticator of prognosticators, the magic Bitcoin ball. Will the price be higher this time next week? Here we go. Let's see. Concentrate and ask again. Concentrate and ask again. No answer from the ball. No help. You'll just have to make your own decisions. Moving on to issue 2. Morgan Stanley holds nearly $30 million in Bitcoin funds. Just recently, Morgan Stanley said that qualifying clients had the ability to buy Bitcoin, and they've been buying it like crazy. 322 clients participated in the funds, buying $30 million in Bitcoin, teaching an old bank new tricks. Ben Ark, your thoughts on Morgan Stanley and their customers who apparently want to buy Bitcoin?
I could see your notes in that screenshot. It's a good thing you didn't write any rude things about us. Morgan Stanley, 3 weeks ago, they said that people could start using Grayscale to buy Bitcoin or something. And now, what was it? Is it 30 million or 300 million? I've lost. 30 million. How much was it?
30, I think.
30 million, yeah, 30 million. Is that in Grayscale or is that in Bitcoin? Is that just their clients have been buying Bitcoin?
It's in Bitcoin. I don't know.
Directly in Bitcoin. Okay, so I thought it might be related to the Grayscale thing 3 weeks ago.
It won't let me up to the desk. Morgan Stanley, this is for unique custom clients that have more than $1 million or more than $5 million in holding in the company. For that amount of money, they'll go out to CoinDesk or Coinbase and make you an account. And,
it's huge. I mean, so obviously they'll say the line, look, this is a highly volatile asset. It should be a small percentage of your portfolio, maybe 3, 4, 5% or something like that. And then I'm sure that they've got some other clients, who want more than that as a portfolio. But there's this theory among a lot of Bitcoiners that these big financial funds are just going to dump the market and dump Bitcoin, pump the price, then dump the Bitcoin. They're not. They've got to excuse their buying to their investors, and trying to time a Bitcoin top as it is, proven to be very, very hard. So they're gonna buy into all the rhetoric we all buy into, that this asset is going to continue to increase in substantially in value as long as we have to hold it for a decent period of time, which is done, historically, and is a good investment historically if you do that. If you start trying to muck around buying dips, and you end up losing all your money. So it's good news that they're buying up Bitcoin, and if they're building that hodler bedrock, just the next level of hodler bedrock, they'll keep it in their portfolio. That 5% will swing around, and then in 3 or 4 years' time, that 5% will be, the biggest earner which they've made in their portfolio, and that'll bring more people into the Bitcoin sphere. But no, it's big news that they're buying up Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to stop with the price going down either. If anything, maybe that'll be. I know we've broken through that 50-day moving average thing, and on a chart, it doesn't look so good for Bitcoin. But these people, they're bright people. That they'll be advising them to hold on to their Bitcoin and just enjoy the ride, and just not put too much of their portfolio into it.
Dan, Eve.
Well, I suppose it's good that they've got exposure. Again, I think if it is as crazy as they're opening a Coinbase account, then they're multiplying the third party risk that they've got there. By going not just holding the Bitcoin, but they're using someone else to have an account to hold the Bitcoin with Coinbase. So it's a peculiar way of doing things. But as long as they have the Bitcoin, I'm sure that in no time they will be dipping their toes in further, spinning up a Bitcoin node, and going all out with LM bits as well, being fully self-sovereign, hopefully. But yeah, it does seem like it's kind of like the timing's pretty bad for all these these new companies and stuff opening up to Bitcoin. You don't want them sort of buying the top and then panicking and then selling and then hating Bitcoin forever. So as long as they can hodl through and just realize that this is like the general market movement, hopefully things will be all good for these new Bitcoiners.
Josh Shigala.
What I find really sad is that these big institutions are jumping in right at the top and allowing, and they have this huge rhetoric about, be careful that you invest, and everything needs to be regulated to hell, and no. But we'll only offer it when the hype train is in full swing. Instead of allowing them to their clients to buy a bit earlier on. What I find absolutely sort of weird, and it's kind of twisted, is it's only $30 million. I mean, it's a lot of money for a single individual, of course, but for a bank like Morgan Stanley, they sort of have that as a little, that's like a sprinkle on top of a cake. It's just nothing. I don't know. I find these sort of news articles strange that they sort of gloat that there's 30 million bucks there. Something doesn't smell right. And the whole that they're buying opening Coinbase accounts for their client. I mean,
I don't know. The Coinbase account thing was a joke, man. I'm really joking here.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
The idea being that if you're so rich, you had to wait for JPMorgan to offer it for you. You could have just walked up to Coinbase at any point in the past 7 years and bought yourself some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But you waited to get this white glove service. I agree a lot with what Josh is saying. I think that CNBC does the same thing, where when the price of Bitcoin was up last time, they put a special box on the screen. Here's the price of Bitcoin, and it stuck out from the other boxes. Like it didn't fit in a little system. And then when the price went down, the box went away and they stopped talking about it. Now that it's back, the box is back, but they put it inside where the Dow is and the other markets. So it's a bit more permanent, like they're not going to stop talking about it this time. But again, same thing. When they're not talking about it, that's when you should be buying. Now that JPMorgan's offering you the chance to buy internally, sadly, it looks like the sheep are getting fleeced. Stefan Kinsella, your thoughts about JPMorgan offering Bitcoin to their clients?
Well, I think it's inevitable. This is part of the process of hyper Bitcoinization, right? More and more avenues for people to get exposure to it, consumers, rich individuals, institutional investors. And, every time this happens, you get more attention, and then more people want to do it. There's more pressure on these companies to offer it. I just hope that I don't think this retrenchment is going to hurt. I think it's temporary, and I don't think they're going to back off. Sort of like in the days of the Bitcoin as payment early days idea when all these merchants were trying to say they were accepting Bitcoin in payment, and then it all kind of fell apart. I don't see this following the same path.
Exit question. Will the other banks follow JPMorgan? Is there no way to stop this? They're all going to cascade in, or is this an outlier? Ben Ark.
Yeah, they have, even if, well, I mean, rich people are just like anyone else, aren't they? They're talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's on topic at the moment in those conversations they have at their family meal. And I think it's good that it's a small amount, that it's not some crazy, ridiculous amount, because I do think that it's sort of sensible buying. It's a small part of their portfolio, but we just need more of that. We just need more of these rich people to have it as a small part of their portfolio. And then they're less likely to do that thing which I spoke about before, potentially dumping on the market, because it doesn't really affect their net worth so much. And it's something which they're willing, a percentage in which they're willing to suffer the crazy price fluctuations, because they know that historically it goes up very significantly.
Dan, Eve.
So I suppose if it does a big retrace, I reckon there'd probably be more likely for other banks to get involved, because they'll know that it's going to swing back up eventually. Whereas if it just keeps on kind of climbing, I think that they might, other banks and institutions might be a bit reluctant, just simply because of the fact that they won't want to be that company that made their clients buy the top. But on the Morgan Stanley, I think they said that there was 5% of their wealth was a maximum that they were allowed to invest. So if there's 30 million in there, then that gives about 600 million of wealth that's interested in buying Bitcoin. And obviously, the glorious thing about Bitcoin is that you don't need Morgan Stanley to get Bitcoin. In fact, it's just much better to have your own and hold your own. So this might be in a time where people start circumventing that and thinking, right, well, I'll have 5% via Morgan Stanley, but I'll start stacking sats in the background because I'm waiting for this stock to flow 250k to come around the corner. So I think more banking institutions will follow. Timing wise, not sure about now because of the fear of buying the top.
Josh Shigala.
The thing is that banks, retail banks, I'm not talking investment banks like JPMorgan and Morgan Stanley and such, but retail banks will definitely start to allow as a product. The main thing that retail banks do nowadays, because it's so hard to make money, it's kind of like phone companies were earning hand over fist with SMSs back in the day. I think it was like each gig that went through their network, they earned $1 million back in the day. And now they earn like nothing, like hardly anything. And off the phone calls, they're all free. Everyone's using Skype and, and it's the same with banks. Retail banking, it's very difficult to make money in that, because no one wants to spend money to send money. And so a lot of it is adding products, adding value. So if you log into your retail bank, it's usually, hey, do you want to buy insurance, or do you want a loan, or do you want this, or do you want that? It's they're like on-selling different products. So of course, what they'll do is they'll jump on some startup that's offering their service to plug into banks, and they will offer to buy for their clients to buy Bitcoin through the interfaces of these banks. Of course, the sales cycles in banks, are long. They take a while to onboard and stuff. Although the API thing that the EU has, that are forcing all banks to now have an API, is making that a little bit more accelerated. But yeah, banks are notoriously slow. I mean, you go into some banks and they've still got green and black screens. Like that's how like long the sales cycles are. I mean, it's insane. So I think the next banks will be all of these retail banks. They'll be the ones allowing their customers to buy Bitcoin. And PayPal has really led that charge. Not that they're a traditional bank, but they're definitely in that same game where they have to start adding more value to their core product, because it's just not that profitable.
Stefan Kinsella, will the other banks follow JPMorgan in?
I think it's almost impossible to imagine they wouldn't. If another bank doesn't, they're going to lose customers. They're going to switch to the ones that do. And even this 5% limit. I mean, look, what if Bitcoin goes up and now your 5% becomes 10%? They're not going to make you sell it, so they're going to have to tolerate that too. And if you have a lot of money in there and you want to put more than 5%, you're going to just take some money out and put it in Coinbase or whatever you want to do. And then the bank's going to lose their management fees. So they're going to be under pressure to keep expanding the limit and for everyone to offer this feature.
Just like to thank everyone for watching and remind you to hit the thumbs up button down below. Remember, it's free to hit the thumbs up button. We have about 33 people watching right now. Probably about 5 or 10 of them have hit the thumbs up button. So there's still a chance. Let's hit thumbs up down below. Also, check out the World Crypto Network audio podcast. I've just gotten access to update it again, so I'll be updating that soon. We haven't had that many shows go on, so if you've been keeping up with the YouTube, you're pretty much up to date. But still a great chance to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe down below if you haven't already. Issue 3, back to JPMorgan again. JPMorgan sounds urgent alarm on Bitcoin price momentum after $300 billion Bitcoin and crypto sell-offs. My question to you, Dan, Eve, do the banks have strong hands? Have we inherited some wonderful new partners, or are they going to run for the hills?
Well, I can't remember the exact status of JP Morgan in terms of whether they're offering it to clients. I know that when Jamie Dimon was FUDing in like 2017, 2018, there was like the day after that he like did a FUD article or FUD campaign, like JP Morgan Sweden bought 9,000 XBT contracts or something crazy. But yeah, I don't know what their position is, but it seems a bit like Captain Hindsight for me. And they do seem to be very up down at they're up down over there in terms of saying it's good, saying it's bad, it's pure heaven, it's the devil, etc. Well, not quite pure heaven, but they do seem to be up and down. I think that I don't know. I think obviously whenever Bitcoin moves massively, it in terms of 10 to 15% ish, it starts to shake people a bit, because we all know that Bitcoin can drop like 80%, in a matter of weeks or whatever. So, or maybe a bit more than that. But so it probably scares people a bit. I just think that there's too much liquidity in it, and the fact is that whenever it drops, it just makes you think even more. Well, I'm going to buy the dip, and there's such a big meme out of buying the dip. That I don't know. I think it's not going to go. I don't think it's going to go much lower. Hopefully we don't see this like crazy 80% retrace. But they've got to kind of warn people just in case their sort of richer clients have been dabbling in it, whether via the bank if they're offering it or not. Just to kind of be the voice of sensible, sensible and reason. Like, be careful, blah blah blah. But no need to sound the alarm. Just hodl.
Josh Shigala are the investors with the pitchforks lining up outside of Elon Musk's door. Are they worried suddenly about the investment in Bitcoin that they've made?
Yeah, this is this is a thing when you get large companies having this on their balance sheets. You've got a lot of these CEOs. They spend a long time to get to that position, and so it's quite a scary move to put that onto the balance sheet. When it's going down and down and down, that's when you should be putting this sort of stuff on your balance sheet. But that's when everyone's, CNBC's taking it off their television. That's when everyone's saying, "Oh, it's over, it's dead. The blocks are full," and blah blah blah. And it's just constant fight about how the technology didn't work. It's a failed project. Someone rage quit. And or whatever, it's really, really, really scary. But then the other side is when it's going up, it's really easy to be a good investor when it's going up in Bitcoin. It's like, oh, look how clever that CEO is. He bought Bitcoin or she bought Bitcoin, and there's really, it's scary, because when you buy the real top and then it drops, that's when we'll see how diamond handsy Elon Musk's hands are. Well, let's see. The thing is, this market, I know, Ben, you said earlier there's a lot of liquidity, but I don't think there is. Like, I find it very, very suspicious that we were watching this market getting weaker and weaker up towards the Coinbase IPO. Yet every dip, it turned back around and tried to push further. And then on the day after Coinbase's IPO, the thing finally goes, yeah. And then heads down for the next like 10 days or whatever it is. Like, it's just been going down and down and down and down. I really, I have no proof of this, and this is not true. This is just my hunch. And I do somehow feel that maybe there was a little bit of market manipulation leading up to Coinbase's IPO. Just saying, probably not, but maybe.
Buy the rumor, sell the news. Ben Ark, your thoughts on Bitcoin price?
No, I don't think it's that liquid. I think we've got a thin top layer of people buying and selling Bitcoin, and the majority of it is either lost coins or hodler bedrock, people who just have their bits on a hardware wallet, and they're going to have them there for 5 years. So no, I don't think there's too much liquidity in the top. But all these investment firms, like, capital has to grow, or else, someone paid me some sats, nice, and they triggered a little animation.
I can't scan the QR code though. I don't know, it's not big enough, but other people are.
No, capital has to grow, and just like the humans, we get interested in Bitcoin maybe just because we're interested in the idea of like digitally native money, something simple, some simple concept. Oh, look, I'm getting to scan loads, that's cool. Now, if you use LNT Export or Zeus or an LN Bits wallet, in fact, because it's using LN Pay, you can actually attach a comment, and you'll have a comment come up here, and you can say anything because it's not censored. So, oh look, it's Martin, stretched Martin. So no, JPMorgan, Morgan Stanley, all these investment firms, they need to have somewhere to put their capital to grow their capital. And yes, they can just buy Bitcoin, they can buy the underlying asset, but there's all these Bitcoin companies, there's this Bitcoin infrastructure and industry, which is now going to have a lot of investment pouring into it, because there's all these people who are now interested in Bitcoin, and they want to invest in Bitcoin and that helps grow their measly 5% or something if they invest in a few Bitcoin companies here and there. So and that strengthens the whole project as a whole, the whole Bitcoin project as a whole. So as an excuse to help grow their capital, I'm sure there'll be some investment in Bitcoin companies, and that will in turn grow the price of Bitcoin, just as that seems to be what's happened in the past.
Stefan Kinsella, are new friends with all the diamonds? Do they also have diamond hands?
I do think there's a bit of a fair weather friend syndrome here. I think that, Saylor's shareholders, I'm not sure how he persuaded them, the corporation, to do that. I'm glad MicroStrategy bought in 2020 so that it looks good now, because it's still a good advertisement for Bitcoin. But yeah, I do think that, even if they're up 4 billion and he were to go down to 1 billion, the shareholders wouldn't see that, oh, he's made us $1 billion. They'd say he lost 3. But I don't think that the banks are going to stop offering the service if the price falls, and I don't think most of the 30 million or so initial people that invested are going to back out. I think they're probably pretty strong hodlers, maybe not diamond, but maybe tungsten.
It's a matter of metals now. It's
the most scale of hardness.
Well, let's see. We're going to move on to issue 4. Issue 4. UK court agrees to hear copyright lawsuit brought by self-proclaimed Bitcoin investor. Yes, Craig Wright is back again, this time suing Bitcoin.org and pseudonymous operator Cobra. Wright is suing Cobra because he posted the Bitcoin white paper on Bitcoin.org. It seemed absurd for a long time. Cobra getting the claims dismissed, calling them without merit in a blog. However, it seems that the United Kingdom court has a very lenient or small standard and is allowing this lawsuit to be brought. To start on this one, we'll go to Stefan Kinsella from the Open Crypto Alliance. You probably have the inside scoop on this and more information than any of us. So go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, and our focus is on patent filings, which are threatening to Bitcoin, some by in-chain and some by others. Of course, I've been long a critic of all types of intellectual property. I'm a patent attorney, by the way. Trademark, patent, and copyright, and all three, interestingly, are being threatened by various actors in the crypto space. Saying that using the name Bitcoin is a trademark infringement. Saying that having a copy of the white paper is some kind of copyright infringement, and then the patent problem too. And in fact, the one danger of the copyright claim is you could say that everyone operating a node or miners are infringing copyright every 10 minutes because there's a copy made of the white paper because it's embedded into the blockchain. So in theory, the desire would be to get a court order to not just to shut down someone from hosting the white paper, but to get a court order making anyone hosting a node to shut down, because that's infringement. So it's a way to try to control the real Bitcoin chain, and to try to get another chain to be more dominant. I think that the claim is totally. Go ahead.
Does Wright want to, like you said, that it would force the miners to shut down, force the nodes to shut down? Does Wright really want to shut down the entire Bitcoin network? Would that benefit him if that was the outcome?
Well, I don't know. I think his strategy is all over the map, but it could be that he thinks that maybe that would give BSV a boost to become the main one or something like that. The copyright claim is ridiculous. The fact that the UK court is going to hear it is just standard procedure. He'll be heard. I think it's almost certain he'll lose because he'd have to prove he's the owner, and given his reputation and the fact that he hasn't proved that he is Satoshi, which most people say he obviously could if he is, would make it appear that he hasn't satisfied his burden of proof. But I think what he's trying to do is just bolster his claims that he is Satoshi. I think that's his main goal in these lawsuits, is to try to get some official recognition from some court that he is Satoshi, which is why they trumpeted early on. They said the U.S. Copyright Office registered their copyright filing proving that he's Satoshi, but that's of course not the case, because the Copyright Office doesn't examine claims of authorship. They just make you swear that you are the author, and under penalty of a fine, which he did. And they just said, okay. And then they sent it back. They said, are you sure? He said, yes. So he just said, I'm sure. And then they issued a press release saying, clarification, just because they're saying that our registering of his application means he's the copyright owner is not actually the case. So it has zero evidentiary weight that he was able to register the copyright. Any one of us could do it right now as well, if you're willing to commit perjury.
And not that the audience has, but I think many in the audience who are also Satoshi Nakamoto may have filed those forms. And if you were Satoshi, it would not be perjury. So
correct.
Just up on that. Ben Ark, your thoughts on the court case being brought by Dr. Wright?
I went to a BSV. I strongly urge, if there's ever a BSV or a Bcash meetup in your local area, as a Bitcoiner, just go in your Bitcoin t-shirt and your paraphernalia and just sit there, because it reins them in. Just your presence reins them in. So it's this BSV talk, and it was called Patenting Blockchain, and it was by his patent lawyers who were there, and they were doing this talk on how you can patent the blockchain. And there are loads of people in suits. It's very funny actually, because I was with one of the guys from the Cardiff Bitcoin meetup, which is a good big Bitcoin meetup, which I think why the BSV guys are sort of like targeting it as somewhat to spread their horrible propaganda. And at one point he stood up and he went, come to our Bitcoin meetup. There's 30 people there. None of them are paid. You see all you lot, you're all being paid. It's quite a sort of embarrassing moment. I was like, oh God. But I was speaking to his patent lawyer afterwards. And at one point we were talking about Satoshi, and she said, oh, he, she, whoever it may be, we don't know who it is, do we? And I was like, and I think reading between the lines, these people are making bank from this guy. So they're like, yeah, okay, crazy rich billionaire, give us some money, and we'll go to some court and then try and convince people that Craig Wright is Satoshi. someone put up a message. Nicely played. That was using LNT exports. That's a bit naughty. That's the problem with you can't not messages you can't censor.
LN transaction bot messages do not reflect the opinions of the World Crypto.
Yeah. Well, they reflect the opinion of me, to be fair. So good call, whoever that was. But so everyone's just making money around him. It will go to court, and actually UK courts, something we do quite well in this country is bureaucracy, and UK courts are quite sensible places. They're not perfect. All courts aren't perfect, but they are quite sensible places where he'll just be tossed out as just a fraudster and a clown, and the judge won't hold back on putting him in his place, I'm sure. And I look forward to that, even though we won't be able to see it. But I look forward to hearing about that happening, which will happen.
Yeah, can I add something? I was just going to say, I think it's actually a good thing, because I think we'll probably get finally a single definitive ruling that one of his IP claims connected to his claim to be Satoshi has been struck down by a court. So, and copyright suits are not nearly as expensive to defend as a patent suit. So I think that this probably will end up being a good thing for Bitcoin.
I mean, he has to continue with the lie, because he has so many people who have invested in him, like Calvin Ayre and people like this. He has like these other gazillionaires who are involved in this fraud, who do think that he is Satoshi. So he has to continue with this lie and continue, making these claims, but he just continues to unravel himself. I mean, he keeps choosing the UK. He chose the UK to come out, and he did that BBC thing where he proved with that weird, convoluted cryptographic signature that he was Satoshi by signing something with some key, and then published the proof. And what the Bitcoin community was amazing. Within I think it was about 40 minutes, it was completely disproved and pulled apart on Reddit by actual geniuses, actual Bitcoin geniuses, which we're lucky to have. So he has to continue this charade, this lie, and it's just watching a train wreck in slow motion, which is it's going to happen.
Let's go to Dan Eve. Your thoughts on the court case and Dr. Wright?
I think it's just incredible that he's still going, and surely there's like a point where a court says they mostly have to hear stuff, right? There's even a case in the UK where I was reading a Glaswegian lady was trying to sue the landlord of the place she worked at because a seagull attacked her and also shat on her. So they'll hear anything, and give it a go. But it's whether they throw it out eventually anyway. And he's been kind of proven wrong. And didn't the case in the US that he had some sort of libel case or something, and they said that he forged documents. And back, as Ben was saying, the BBC article when BBC interview where he apparently signed a transaction, but actually what happened, I think in the debunking, he set a variable or a signature as a variable when it shouldn't have been, or something like that. And so tiny little difference, but he was able to sign it, and it was disproven, of course. Even Wired, their article back in 2015. So the title was originally, "Is Bitcoin's creator this unknown Australian genius?" And then the subheading was, "Documents leaked to Wired suggested that Bitcoin's creator was Craig Wright." And then they later added in 2019, basically, there's loads of inconsistencies, and he's been there's evidence that it appears to be fraudulent. So they added onto their title, "Is Bitcoin's creator this unknown Australian genius? Probably not updated." And they also admitted that it was probably a hoax as well. So I don't know. There's got to be a time when people just stop listening to him. But there's unfortunately a lot of people with a lot of money involved, and there's kind of a cognitive dissonance going on where they're like, I can't admit because I've gone all in on BSV because I was sold a bag of dud beans, and I can say personally that I was sat at a table, I've mentioned this before, with Craig Wright opposite me, a Bitcoin powwow meal, infamous meal now, I think, where Craig Wright said that Satoshi was probably dead anyway. So I don't believe any of it. And there's no evidence that seems to show that he is. It's just, everything just doesn't add up. And it just seems like a continuous, run of being rejected in court. So hopefully it continues that way.
I think he would use the Obi-Wan Kenobi Darth Vader line that when in the first Star Wars, Obi-Wan said, "Your father is dead," and Darth Vader was still alive, and they meant, well, he really changed. So he would have some kind of Darth Vader line, I bet.
Yeah, definitely. But hopefully this will be the last we hear of him from this court.
There's always a way to weasel out of things that you've said, but certainly Wired Magazine did us no favors with the certitude of that headline, nor did Newsweek when they declared Dorian Satoshi as Satoshi. Just a hint for the future in the media. If you think you have the new Satoshi, you don't have it, and your headline is wrong. I'm just telling you in advance. I'm saving you the trouble. Josh Shigala, your thoughts on the lawsuit from self-proclaimed Bitcoin inventor?
One thing I wanted to ask Stefan is, can someone sue him for these claims and to prove in front of a court of law, especially the fact that he's going around aggressively, or his team is aggressively suing people like Cobra, who are very well respected in this space for a very long time. That I think is a really interesting thing, and I'm sure everyone would pull money in to do that.
I'm not aware of any generalized tort or claim where you can just sue someone for like running around the world abusing all the legal systems. That's part of the problem with the system we have is you can just sue someone meritlessly and impose lots of costs on them just to defend it. Some systems have some right in some cases to get your attorney's fees if the claim turned out to be extremely frivolous, which some of these might be proven to be. In fact, I think one of his cases already had that. There's some ruling in Norway or some country against him which he won't pay or something like that. I've heard about that. So the best thing is to hope to get it dismissed with prejudice and with some kind of a sanction against him. The closest analogy I can think of is, the Happy Birthday song we're all familiar with for decades was, you'll notice you go to some restaurants or in some TV shows, they have an alternate version of Happy Birthday because some company went around claiming copyright in it for decades, and they would collect royalties when people wanted to pay, and then they would sue people for not using it, and some people would use the fake song instead to avoid. And then finally, a few years ago, it was overturned in court. But of course, tens of millions of dollars had been collected at that point. Now, I think they had to pay it back, but it's probably long gone by then. So if he had collected some royalties for the white paper and then he lost, maybe they could be disgorged, but I don't think we're going to reach that point.
So, but if he goes around suing people like Cobra, wouldn't it be a normal part of the course to say, well, you have to prove that that you are Satoshi to bring this? I mean, can I just say I'm Satoshi and I'm going to sue everyone?
You have to, I think the burden of proof is on him to prove infringement. You have to prove you're the plaintiff with the ownership. So to prove that, you have to prove you're the author. So the burden of proof would be on him. It's probably a preponderance of the evidence. I think that's why he filed in the US, because if you file a registration for a work that's published within a certain amount of time, I think within 5 years, then, and no one challenges it or something like that, then there's a presumption that you are the author. But he filed it after that period. So there is literally no presumption whatsoever. So he would just have to prove it somehow. And I think the only evidence at this point would be his testimony. And testimony can be evidence, but so he would just say, I hereby promise you that I'm the author. Now, the question is, would they be credible? Given his reputation at this point, and given the fact that I'm sure the defense would point out to the judge, it would give them a little education about Bitcoin. They would say, listen, if he really is Satoshi, he presumably has control over a certain number of coins, and he could easily prove that here in court. He could prove it by signing a signature or something like that. And if he refuses to do that, I think the judge will say, well, then, you have an easy way to prove it. You're not doing it. You're the one bringing the suit, and you're not meeting your burden of proof. So I think he's just going to fail to meet his burden of proof.
What about the licensing? So like Bitcoin obviously is, under copyleft, it's MIT, isn't it?
Well, that's another defense to the, there's at least two defenses. One defense would be that he's not the author, so he doesn't have a copyright claim at all. The other defense would be, even if he is the author, it was released under this MIT license, so it's so anyone using it is using it with permission that has already been granted and can't be taken back. So they're not infringing because they have license. So that's another defense they can use.
Because it's an attack on the integrity of the MIT license, isn't it? Which is not going to be met very friendly, very well. Yeah.
Josh, did you have more on that?
No, I mean, I just am definitely very interested in this one. I agree that there is a cognitive dissonance happening where people are too heavily invested either against this gentleman or for him, and it's just like, just sign the keys, dude. If you're gonna say Satoshi, just sign it and get it over and done with. But he doesn't.
Well, and just to follow up with Stefan, has there ever been a case like this before where a large technology like this exists but is not signed for by a major company? It's not like Pepsi can come in and say, that guy there made the formula for Pepsi, he works for us. There's no situation like this before. Can you think of anything similar?
Well, I think that if he had worked for a corporation and he had assigned his copyright to the corporation, then they would be the right plaintiff to bring the suit, and it would be a little messier. I don't know if that's the case. I don't think there was any corporation when the white paper was originally published. The closest analogy would be probably to the case of patents, where a group of companies collaborates to develop a standard that they want to be universally adopted. And then one of those companies behind the scenes is secretly patenting aspects of the standard, the part that they contribute. And then after everyone adopts the standard, then they start suing everyone for using it. And then in that case, you have antitrust concerns and things like that, and it just looks icky. So in those cases, courts can tend to be reluctant to let you enforce your patent if you sort of let it be adopted as the standard, right? That you meant for everyone to use it in sort of an open way. So I think you could argue that in this case, number one, whoever created Bitcoin started the blockchain, and maybe they even put it they put the paper in the blockchain, right? So by doing that, they obviously wanted people to use the blockchain as an open standard. And I think so we would call that an estoppel argument. So he would be estopped from complaining, for example, that people are using the blockchain and therefore violating his copyright because he encouraged them to do that, or he made it possible by setting up the blockchain and maybe even putting the white paper in there himself.
It seems an interesting analogy between this and Taproot, where I know they wanted to use that algorithm earlier on, but it was a copyright algorithm you had to pay for. So it didn't get included. It wasn't the standard.
I can explain the Taproot thing. My understanding is there was a patent on it, and it had expired shortly before, just a couple years before 2008. But because it had just expired, there had been no developed libraries and APIs and all that.
This is Schnorr, isn't it? We're talking about Schnorr.
Yeah, sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, I think. Sorry. That is Schnorr I'm talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, which is I mean, I use Schnorr.
Locked down with the monetary issue, whereas Bitcoin allows it to roll out, so it becomes the standard. Whereas if Schnorr hadn't been locked down, maybe they would have rolled out and become the standard. So it's interesting, different licensing schemes, and then what happens in the real world.
Yeah, it's just being adopted now, and it's an example of how patents and IP distort and impede the development of innovation, especially new innovative technologies. So it's a sad thing that Bitcoin couldn't have had this earlier, which they would have been able to, if not for patents.
Yeah, Schnorr signatures are dope. I've used them a few times recently in the past year, and they're great. I can see why Bitcoin would have worked a lot better if we just had them from the beginning. What about the MIT license? Has anyone ever challenged something which has been released under MIT and then turned it into a privately copyrighted thing?
I believe that in a few cases there have been challenges to the legal effectiveness of things like the Creative Commons license and the MIT and the GNU, these types of licenses, because there are some legal problems you could find with them. For example, normally a license would be a negotiation between two identified parties. They would have an agreement, either written or oral, but you could point back to that actual agreement. And so there'd be also consideration, right? A contract to be legitimate in common law countries, you need consideration. Whereas if I just publish a work and I say on there, this is licensed under Creative Commons or MIT, you could say, well, the person using it, how do we have a record that they got the license? Because I could change it later and maybe they don't have proof that I was published under a license. And what consideration did they pay? But I believe in the few cases that I'm aware of, the courts have basically said, no, these are enforceable. If anything, under the estoppel theory, like, look, you put it out there, you intended for people to rely upon this and use it. They did. So you'd be stopped or prevented from making a copyright infringement claim, which would be tantamount to a license. So I do think that the MIT license would probably be legally enforceable. And because of that, a copyright infringement suit would fail because the person being sued would have a defense.
It'd be interesting to like have some sort of NFT that would carry that license, so you can prove that it hasn't been changed, or that you got it at a certain time, at a timestamp on a blockchain, and then it hasn't changed because he is the NFT for it.
Correct, or on the blockchain. Now, the Internet Archive could work as well, but that's spotty in coverage. The problem is all these solutions are too complicated to work in reality, because copyright is automatic. You don't have to do anything. So everyone has a copyright in anything that as soon as you write it down, even if it's not published. And people are just too lazy to take those steps to do that. They're just going to publish things online, and at best, you can hope that they will slap a CC BY or some kind of license on it, because it takes two seconds to just write that. But I think that's all you can expect most people to go through the trouble of doing. If you require them to actually go through the extra step of embedding it in an NFT, that's going to be like 0.1% of the cases. So most cases would not be verified that way.
Toshi's original post on Bitcoin open source implementation of P2P currency. I've developed a new open source P2P eCash system called Bitcoin. That's the first sentence of the first post he ever wrote. So it'd be quite hard to prove that it was copyrighted when he's already, like, within the first sentence and the title of his first post, he's saying it's open source. So I suppose it's the white paper specifically, is it?
There's also a second related doctrine to estoppel called latches, which is like another equitable doctrine, which means that if you wait too long to bring a suit, then you're also barred under equity. Because and if you wait 12 years and you let this whole industry grow up, this is related to the standards, patent standards argument. But if you let the whole Bitcoin ecosystem grow up and you lurk like a submarine waiting for everyone to adopt it, and then you spring upon them and sue them, that would look bad as well. And I think latches would be yet another defense that could be used, saying that you're barred by estoppel, you're barred by latches, you're barred by the fact that you granted an MIT license, and you're barred by the fact that you can't prove that you're Satoshi. So there's at least four defenses.
He's just screwed, isn't he? He's never going to get it through. He's never going to prove that he's Satoshi. He's never going to get people to take these white papers down. All he can do is just go around trying to bully people with lawsuits.
I think
Correct.
This is a perfect setup for the exit question. Forced prediction, yes or no? Will Craig Wright be successful? Will he force Cobra to take down the white paper? Dan Eve.
I think, did I read that he did actually take it down briefly? It might be put back up, but no, he didn't.
Get sued, but yeah, long term.
Well, I think well, hopefully not then, because I think that I read that Square Crypto also like put up the white paper in protest. So I think he's going to have a lot of lawsuits on his hand, and hopefully this one just gets slapped out. But just very quickly before my favorite quote of all time from Craig Wright. 2019. Oh my, that's my dog licking the bowl. I haven't fed her just yet. Favorite quote is he says, "There's this whole I'll feed you soon. There's this whole section. I remember some white paper back in 2008. It had this section on how identity worked in Bitcoin. I remember reading it, probably when I wrote it." That means you didn't write it. Sorry, that was it. Favorite quote.
Dan says, hopefully not a lot of faith in the UK legal system. Josh Shigala, yes or no? Will he be successful?
No, I don't believe he will. No.
Ben Ark.
Yeah, those Craig Wright bloopers are well worth looking up. It's hilarious. And that particular quote in that speech where it's like, yeah, I read it in 2000. Probably because I wrote it. I wrote it in 2000. It's so ridiculous. No, it's not gonna. Yeah, it's kind of sad to watch almost. But I'm also not too worried about Cobra. Cobra's like, he's got bank. You know, like Satoshi wants to fuck with him throwing lawsuits around. Okay, like his identity may be at risk, which would really suck because he's managed to keep it private for such a long time. But Cobra's been in Bitcoin for a long time, and he's got some very rich friends. So if it does ever get to the point where he has to tool up lawyer-wise, because I imagine that this case, by the sounds of it, with all the holes in it, if it gets into a court, you don't need an expensive lawyer to prove there's a load of bollocks. The judge will be able to see that on their own. So but if he does need to tool up, then Cobra can tool up. He doesn't need to worry about that. And like I think Josh said, we could easily put a fund together to help the legal battle or whatever. So yeah, no, it's just a train wreck in slow motion.
Stefan Kinsella, yes or no? Does Wright succeed?
No, I think he doesn't. And there was, I don't know if you saw, there's an interesting little video someone came out with a few weeks ago, sort of a little defiance stunt where they had a couple of hundred Bitcoin personalities each read a snippet of the white paper, so that the whole white paper is in one video on YouTube, but every person is only saying a very tiny fragment. I guess the idea is each one is using it a bit in fair, it's called fair use, right? So each one is not individually liable, because if you can read a sentence, that's fair use. So there's lots of things that they can't shut down, even if they could shut this down. But no, I think he's going to lose.
That's probably the same reason they made the "We Are the World" video, just to establish fair use. Moving on to issue 5. Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk agree on Bitcoin's green credentials. We talk about it a lot because it's the most popular Bitcoin FUD of 2021. Yes, Bitcoin uses as much power as a small country. It's so easy to calculate. You just take the number of power used by a miner and multiply times another number, and that's how you get the answer. Bitcoin uses too much power. But now Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk are arguing back, even saying that Bitcoin is actually good for the environment. Josh Shigala, is Bitcoin good for the environment?
Of course it is. The humans need to use power. They need to use as much power as possible, because the more power that we use, the better society becomes. And the thing is that we need to find better power sources, and this is exactly what Bitcoin's doing. It's heading towards better power sources. We live on the most amazing planet where there's constant power in the ionosphere, like more than we can ever use. There's more than we can ever use just a kilometer or two underneath us, maybe a little bit more. But it's really the search for renewables really isn't that far away from us. What's been stopping humanity for a long time is structures like the coal industries or the oil industries that manage to corner markets and protect markets through using the force of the state to protect certain industry and certain regions. And Bitcoin turns the table to say, hey, there's a game theoretical advantage to finding the cheapest, most abundant energy possible, and go for it. So really, this is what Bitcoin does. It heads humanity towards the cheapest source of energy possible. And the cheapest source of energy is, of course, the stuff that is just coming out of the earth or in the ionosphere or the waves or there's abundant energy. We just need clean versions.
Stefan Kinsella, your thoughts on Bitcoin and energy usage?
Well, first of all, I mean, you could argue that the current fiat system, say the dollar, pollutes way more because it's backed by the U.S. military, which is the biggest polluter. And gold mining, of course, is horrendous for the environment. So compared to them, it's nothing. But you could make a contrarian argument, that more CO2 is good as plant food, right? So unfortunately, Bitcoin's going to go green and use renewable sources instead of putting more CO2 into the air. So unfortunately, it's not going to give us a lot of plant food. But I'm just kind of joking a little. But no, I think it's going to spread energy around the world. It's going to make I'm here in Houston, Texas. We were frozen in January because the windmills shut down. If you build 5 times as many windmills as you need, you can't justify that right now because they're idle. But if you put Bitcoin mining farms near them, you can soak up that power. And when there's an emergency, they can just go offline and give it to the humans to heat their homes. So I think it's going to revolutionize energy stability around the world and produce new energy centers where there's no populations, and then populations will move there. So it's going to colonize the world with power and energy, which is a good thing.
But calculating the value of the fiat system's hard. I have to have more than 2 variables, armored trucks, ATMs, cost of office spaces, all of that. That's too hard to do. The Bitcoin thing's really nice and easy. I just slam the 2 numbers together and multiply. It's a big win for everyone. Ben Ark, more of this FUD in the future?
Petrodollar, like petrodollar, linked to the price of petrol. That's what most people trade in on the international markets. Bitcoin is incredibly efficient if we use it better, and if we use a transaction from far more things than just me sending value to somebody else, which is possible. As we were talking about, we mentioned Taproot a little bit earlier on. There's so much information you can pack into a Bitcoin transaction, and there's so much economic movement you can pack into a Bitcoin transaction. So I think we need to. The first thing we can do, if we're concerned about the, I'm concerned personally. If I do a bit on-chain Bitcoin transaction, I get it's like taking a flight or something. I get a little bit of carbon guilt, because I'm a bit of a snowflakey lefty type, so I care about these things, and I do get a little bit of carbon guilt. There's Martin there in spirit. He's with us, yeah, they are heavy carb, but I mean for good reason, because you're sending a transaction without a trusted third party, and this is the cost of that. We just need to make it more. We need to make it more, the actual transaction itself, more efficient, and then as well as that, encourage green mining and encourage this debate, because actually, I know we all think it's FUD and we don't like talking about it, but look, you've got Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey discussing how Bitcoin can actually have a beneficial impact on people seeking out renewables and making businesses where they can sustain renewables being developed by in downtime when there's no demand for the electricity, by locking it up by mining Bitcoin, and how Bitcoin goes to the place where the energy is cheapest and all that sort of stuff, all that good propaganda which we put out there. But I think just making a Bitcoin more, making transactions more efficient is a good step. And then also, like, I want more offsetting. I know people don't like the idea of offsetting, but I want more offsetting options. So to heal my carbon guilt, and for anyone else who's worried about Bitcoin, it doesn't cost much. I send a Bitcoin transaction, and then for an extra 5-10%, I can then pay the carbon footprint of that transaction for like 3-4 years or something. So we need more solutions. There's loads of carbon offsetting charities out there where they have APIs, and you can like figure out how much your flight is going to cost you in carbon, and you can offset that. And there's no reason why they couldn't put Bitcoin into their APIs. It'd be great. I'd use it. So I want to see more solutions like that coming out for people like me who are a bit snowflakey. And then if people are concerned, you say, well, let's carry on using Bitcoin. Just if you're concerned about it, just offset your carbon footprint.
Everybody's always down on Bitcoin fees, but I always think it's worth it. Even if I have to pay $5 or $10 to use the network, I'm always like, I'm using Bitcoin. I'm happy. I'm using another currency.
It's amazing.
It's worth $5 or $10 to me. And I guess you have to send around a couple thousand or something to make that worth it, but still worth it. Cool. Like, neat to do. Even if I'm sending it to a buddy, it's like, it's worth doing it because I want the chance of him holding the Bitcoin. I want to increase that odds by sending
all that hash rate forever, all those extra hashes are securing that transaction, your transaction, specifically your transaction, and make it more and more secure just as time wears on. It's incredible.
They just need to put an animation on it. People can't see the animation, so they don't know what's happening. So
exactly,
it's computer animation. Dan, Eve, your thoughts on Bitcoin and being green?
Well, I think that one of the key things in that article is that a lot of the resistance you hear about Bitcoin is that, obviously that it's completely ungreen, it's using fossil fuels and blah blah blah, and that people won't move to it because then move to green because they're not incentivized, but they are incentivized to move to being green in Bitcoin because it's where the cheaper electricity comes from for the excess, as we've discussed before. But I don't know. I think the only thing that's unsustainable in Bitcoin is people saying that it's dead. I mean, there's surely they're going to run out of gas soon. They can't sustain saying it's dead because it hasn't died yet. It's been 11 years and counting. Yeah, I don't know. There was in that article it said it's a cynical attempt to greenwash, Bitcoin. But surely they should be at least celebrating slightly that big names like Musk and Jack are pushing for a greener Bitcoin. It does show that there's kind of a positive movement behind at least kind of letting the world know that it does use less fossil fuels than everyone's saying. But all it takes is a bit of research and a bit of a skeptical mind to filter out. And I know that obviously Bitcoin related news articles from our side, the Bitcoin side will probably have a bit of bias. And the other side has anti-bias. They don't like the idea of a green Bitcoin or think that it's just crap, but they've probably just missed the boat. You've always got to remember that. Anyone that's crapping on Bitcoin, they can't, they may be an expert, but they also, because they're being negative about Bitcoin, it's likely they miss the boat. So just whenever you see an expert said something negative about Bitcoin, just replace that with someone who missed the boat said something bad about Bitcoin. And then you're like, what a loser. But not a loser in a bad way, as in they lost out, not on an actual loser. Yeah, so I think it's good that they're promoting a greener Bitcoin. I don't think there's anything that's wrong with it. Won't be paying for my carbon credits for my Bitcoin usage, but use things like Lightning, which do have a lower footprint.
And there's still a chance for you to catch the boat by giving us a thumbs up to this episode. When we were around 30 viewers, we said, give us a thumbs up. Now we're at 50 viewers, thanks to your help. Moving on to the exit question, Mr. Wonderful, star of the Shark Tank program, has famously said that he will only buy Bitcoin minted with green energy, and he will only buy Bitcoin not minted in China. How long before other companies follow suit, and which one will be first? Who will offer customers green Bitcoin first? Let's go to Josh Shigala.
What a ridiculous statement. I mean, go on. Tell me which Bitcoin is green, mined with green. Tell me which Bitcoin is what? What are you talking about? Even with your home energy, when you've got solar panels on your roof, generally that's going back into the grid and you're just buying power that's also made from coal. It's just you're adding to the network. So you sometimes, get cheaper power, whatever. And it's the same with Bitcoin. Some of it's made green, some of it's not. It'll all mix. All it needs to do is go through a couple of transactions and it's already mixed with other ones. What is Mr. Wonderful really going to... I bet, and in fact, if Mr. Wonderful has some Bitcoin, I guarantee you that they would have been through Silk Road, the original Silk Road. It would have gone through that, pretty much guaranteed, or some sort of dark market, and that's just a fact.
It is possible that he's buying virgin full blocks direct from the miners.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That he could get.
As if.
And as far as the other point, Josh isn't going to like it, but a company like Coinbase might come along, pay the carbon offsets for your Bitcoin transaction, and then claim it's green, offering a potential advantage for an otherwise fungible Bitcoin. Ben Ark, do you think it will happen? Who will be first?
Sorry. I'm off topic, but amazingly, we have made 10,000 Satoshis from my goofy little animation thing, which actually is a decent amount of money. So as I said earlier on, I'm going to visit.
That's $5, man. It's like $5.
That's like $5. That's $5. So here's a giveaway here. It's got 2,000 Satoshi pulls on this island URL, so get those Lightning wallets out and suck those sats. And that's my answer to the question.
Wow. So you can so people can just take those sats back. So folks at home, scan that QR code right now and make sure you hit the subscribe button for next week's show. If you want to get these sats, you got to be watching this show live.
And this is circular economy right here. Like people paid to do a little animation thing, and then Craig Wright is a thing up there, which is well worth it. And now that money which is going back out through the screen. Crazy.
It's literally circular around your head. One is on the left side, one's on the right side. It's amazing.
All right, let's go to Stefan Kinsella. Who will be first? Who will offer green Bitcoin?
I don't know. I don't think it matters. I think this is it'll be a temporary thing like NFTs, just flash in the pan. For Bitcoin to work, I believe it has to be fungible or fungible enough. So if you start having tainted coins, then it's going to be ruined as a store of value or reserve currency.
Yep.
But I think it won't happen because if someone is stupid enough to restrict their buying to a limited pool of Bitcoins, they're going to have to pay more, and other people with no scruples will arbitrage it away. Sort of like the libertarian free market argument that irrational racism and sexism on the free market has a cost and can't work because employers that only hire white males are going to be harmed by restricting themselves to that pool, and they'll be outcompeted by others. And I think something similar would happen in the Bitcoin world too. I think this is nonsense. I know lots of people that would laugh at that, and they would buy the Bitcoins that are tainted, that are being sold on the cheap, relatively speaking.
It does seem very likely that Mr. Wonderful is paying a premium for his green Bitcoin. So that might affect his investment horizons as well. Dan, Eve, did we talk to you about this one, about who's going to sell you a green Bitcoin first? Would it be Coinbase in San Francisco, famously liberal city? Dan, Eve?
I wonder if it'd be funny if it's some like Greenpeace, like they're getting in the gate. Greta, that's it. Greta's going to open up an OTC counter and she'll be selling you green Bitcoin for a premium. That's who I'm going with.
And she could save the environment. She could use the money to fund her operations. Sounds like a good mix. All right, I think we're headed towards the end of the show here. So we'll just go ahead with predictions or story of the week. Josh Sigala, are you ready with a prediction or story of the week?
We're hot on the heels, developing our project, our secret squirrel project that can't really talk about too much, but it's going to be amazing. Unfortunately for us Bitcoiners over here, it will be on Ethereum, but that is because smart contracts aren't available really. The op return codes aren't enough currently on Bitcoin. But it's an amazing project. There will be some airdroppage on Vaultoro, so make sure you join up on Vaultoro to grab some of that once this project is ready, and to get all the latest news as it's happening. It's really exciting project for all the gold bugs, as well as the Bitcoin bugs, as well as people that like crypto and all things new.
Dan, Eve, prediction or story of the week. Go ahead.
I'm going to go for something a bit more realistic as my prediction this week. And I think that after Musk and Jack have been chatting in their little pump group, I think they're going to build a Dyson sphere. That's it. They're going to announce plans soon to build a Dyson sphere, and that will cover the green element as well. So it's all green, up there around the sun, and that's it. All the mining can be done via the electricity gathered from the Dyson sphere.
And we can finally stop losing energy. We can create a true closed loop system for the world. Ben Ark, planning to live in that new Dyson sphere. Prediction or story of the week. Go ahead, Ben.
Elon Musk needs to stop let's send all those rockets up into space, because that's got a heavy carbon footprint too. He needs to offset it with an API. So just as you can figure out how much carbon you're using flying to, Mallorca, you could figure out how much carbon you're using sending a rocket up to the moon and then offset it. That's all I've got to say to Elon.
And finally, Stefan Kinsella, prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's that expression? They can't, if you can't hear someone scream in outer space, maybe you can't see pollution in outer space if we build this sphere. So who cares, right? All right, couple of predictions. Not really a week, maybe a little bit longer horizon, but I can't wait for Vijay Poyapati's Bullish Case for Bitcoin book to come out pretty soon, I believe. And the Open Crypto Alliance, which I'm in, Open Crypto X on Twitter, you can find it. Or the website opencryptoalliance.org. We're very soon going to be putting up some patents that we've selected for requesting the community to help us crowdsource and find prior art, which we can use to challenge some of these ridiculous patents to get some victories, knocking them down, so that the reputation and the claims will be tarnished, and remove some of the power to use these patents in an aggressive and harmful way against innocent Bitcoin companies and individuals.
Well done. This is such an amazing project. I take my hat off to you. As you can see, everyone, I'm not wearing a hat this week, and that's because I take it off to Stefan's group and team, small team, doing amazing work, and very, very much worthwhile. In fact, I love Ben Ark's QR codes here. I think we should definitely be using those more and more to help raise funds for all the great work you're doing.
Very cool, and also shocking to see Josh's uncovered head. Just one more time, Stefan, what's the webpage for the Open Crypto Alliance?
opencryptoalliance.org, and you can find us on Twitter at OpenCryptoX.
Very cool. Excellent organization. And my story of the week, I've been having fun trying out the Topps NFT cards on Wax. I don't think that I'm making any money. I couldn't get in the early sale. I got into the later sales. I bought a bunch of Oakland A players and a couple of San Francisco Giants, and I'm having a good time with collectibles. So if you guys are into NFTs, check it out. We're going to be having some more NFT content here on the World Crypto Network. It looks like I haven't been doing anything because I'm not doing daily shows, but I have been doing interviews, even sometimes 2 or 3 a day. And I'm going to edit those down and eventually launch those as a series of interviews with NFT creators. We've also been doing interviews with people that go to Bitcoin conventions, and we're focusing on some documentary content of Bitcoin conventions. So look for that in the future. Obviously, this kind of thing takes a lot longer, requires editing, hopefully looks nicer when it comes out, but it's not as fun as doing daily shows. You get that.
Oh yeah, and the WCN clips as well.
Yeah, and WCN clips. Check out WCN clips on YouTube. Subscribe to it. You'll even start to see them pop up in your inbox. They're quite enticing. They have cool headlines like, Bitcoin or NFTs are going out of business. Click here. And Bitcoin is the best thing ever. Click here. So it's really
cool. Like, oh my God, Bitcoin's going to $10,000 million.
And these are great to share with your friends and people that are into Bitcoin. Maybe they don't have time to watch the whole show, but they'd be happy with just a short show. And for me, this is really how I got into Joe Rogan. The JRE Clips channel always had an enticing clip, a great headline, and it would draw me in, and I'd end up watching the whole interview. So we kind of hope to recreate some of that magic here. And with your help sharing those clips, we can make that possible. So thanks so much to everybody for joining us. Thanks for all our guests. Thanks to everybody pushing that thumbs up out there in the audience, and be sure to subscribe down below. We're out of time, but until next time, bye.
Bye.